Happy holidays, everybody. Jose here, and I am so glad to let you know that not only is it the best time of year, but Amazon Music is also extending their free trial offer to a 3-month subscription for new subscribers. Head on over to getamazonmusic.com/JoseCanYouSee to start your 3-month trial of Amazon Music today. Whether it's getting into the Merry Mix playlist or even listening to Amazon's original version of Someday at Christmas performed by Grammy Award-winning artist Lizzo, and even listening to some of your favorite podcasts and 70 millions of your favorite songs, there's definitely something for you on Amazon Music. So definitely head over to getamazonmusic.com/JoseCanYouSee, getamazonmusic.com/JoseCanYouSee, and make sure to start streaming today while you can get that additional 2 months of extra music. 3 full months of Amazon Music can be yours for this holiday season. Thank you so much to Amazon for partnering with me, and enjoy today's episode. All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Content with Creation. Jose Gonzalez here. Thank you so much for stopping by, and I do want to say thank you for all the support on this most recent episode with the incomparable DS Shin from Ring the Bell, our most watched episode, most talked about. Thank you so much for all engaging with it. Hopefully you guys can stick around for some extra great episodes I have coming up for the rest of the year, including today's guest, one of my favorite content creators at the moment. You've seen her all over the place if you follow any form of digital professional wrestling coverage. She is the queen of the ring, Alex Lajas. Alex, how are you?
I'm fantastic. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited to get to catch up with you for more than 5 minutes in Dallas. It's going to be such a great conversation. I'm so excited.
But not only like more than 5 minutes, but like not at Superstore Access.
Yeah, like not at Access, not outside of WrestleCon, not like yeah. Post sobbing to Shawn Michaels.
I was sobbing. Ella J was not sobbing, according to her record.
Yeah, according to other accounts, I can vouch that is not true. Yeah. Although it was nicely memed into Mickey James's face for those that haven't seen it. I will dig it up in the archives, I swear.
Yes, please. I want to see that.
Yeah. I mean, thank you again for taking some time out of your night to chat with me, all things content. So even before getting into your content career, I would love to know, like, what was your background before you got into becoming a creator yourself?
I was an actress,
Ooh.
an actor, if you will.
Yes.
Yeah, I was an actor. I went to school for theater, and I did stand-up and improv, mostly at UCB. Was the stand-up good? No, but I did it anyway. But yeah, that was just me, like a struggling actress in New York City, serving, bartending to make ends meet. So
yeah,
that's what I did.
Awesome. Were you born and raised in the city?
Yep.
Oh gosh, so you've probably
New Yorker.
You've seen everything then. I mean, all forms of nightlife, all the different things that have happened in the city over your lifetime. I'm sure it's probably incomparable to anywhere in the world.
Oh yeah, I grew up in like the New York hardcore scene too, so like I've been to plenty of shows, plenty of shut down shows, had to run away from the cops, which doesn't sound too bad, but like I just feel like that's maybe a natural thing in New York, just getting in trouble and going to like very underground parties and stuff. So yeah, I'm very rare these days, because I'll run into someone, like a friend of mine is like from, I don't know, Chicago, and they live here, and they're like, wait, you're born and raised here, right? I'm like, yeah, we're not around anymore.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm obviously on the other side of the state, so I can definitely confirm New York City is its own beast compared to somewhere like a Buffalo. We're a different kind of crazy. We're a smaller, but I won't say mightier, but just the levels of crazy are different. Whereas you guys have like all the different people on the street, very loud in your face. We have people that jump off of vans and go through tables at a football game. So.
Oh right, because you're up in Buffalo. Yeah.
Yeah, where we have nasal A's and we dip our wings in blue cheese. Yeah, and we have the fun, hard to pronounce highways like Skajakwada. Yes.
Skajakwada.
Yes, if you could spell that on the air right now, you will get $5 to your Venmo.
I'm good.
No,
I'll get my $8 somewhere else from Twitter.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna check that off the list. So let's see. So, I mean, obviously having an acting background, I would love to know, like, was it a lot of just, like, was it more musical theater? Was it very much, like, standard drama, like, novelettes?
Oh, it was standard drama. I was not doing musical theater. But no, it was mostly just drama. I love doing comedy, but when I was in school, it was more like Shakespeare and, like, taking serious, like, dramas and, like, little plays where it's just like, I want to do something fun.
I believe that.
It was fun, but, you know, like, I'm much more have a comedy background, so to speak. So when I was in school, I did mostly that. And then when I finally got out of school, that's when I started improv and stand-up. And I felt like I was more comfortable with that as opposed to drama, because I feel like with comedy is a little more vulnerable than drama, because with comedy it's harder to get a laugh, right? So you have to be a little bit more vulnerable and a little bit, you know, if I don't get a laugh, that's okay. If I do get a laugh for a certain line or scene that I wasn't expecting to get a laugh in rehearsal, then it's a different reaction to just drama. It's like, oh my gosh, the scene is so serious, where comedy can go anywhere.
Yeah, see, now I'm thinking about stuff on the comedy side of things and on the drama side. So on the comedy side, have you ever had to encounter a heckler?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, there was actually this one. So when I did improv, it was mostly like in bars or like a back room of a bar, a basement of a bar. So we would perform at like midnight, and people that are already there, that are already drunk, go downstairs and like, oh, comedy show's happening, and I've heckled. Although I've seen some TikToks of comedians getting heckled, and it's like on another level now, as opposed to before. What I experienced was mostly just drunk people, but it was easy to just put them along in like the skit of like an improv scene or in your set. But yeah, I definitely have run into hecklers.
And not having canned beverages thrown at you on stage. Which...
Oh my God! Did you see that one where the girl
caught it and drank it?
Yeah. Oh my God, my hero. No, but I would love to do that though.
I know. I would love to see it happen too, because I could just imagine you taking no prisoners, be like, "Yeah, I wish you would. I wish you would."
I mean, yeah.
And on the drama side of things, I always ask this to people that have done theater before: do you believe in the power of the Scottish play? That word that we shan't name.
Oh, I respect if other people believe in it, but when I was in school, I didn't really, like, if it goes wrong, it goes wrong, you know? Yeah. But if other people in the production were like, don't say it, then it's just like, okay, whatever, yeah. I'll say it when I'm outside this building.
Yep, I've definitely experienced it where someone said it and then sure enough, things do go wrong. So I don't know if I'm just superstitious or maybe a little stitious, but I don't know. It's interesting to hear people's different stories about it, because some people have like the worst of the worst, and then some people just nothing happens.
I've never been in a production where it's been said and something wrong happens. Although I've been in plenty productions where something bad happens, but although when someone, like, I've heard people like have experiences of it was said and then the lead actress broke her foot or something like that, which is like, okay, maybe it's true, but I've never been around the superstitious background of it, I guess, in my own experience. So.
Yeah. I don't know, I feel like maybe it's just me, because I know, like, even culturally, like, I've had some encounters with superstition where it's just like, oh, I better knock on wood, or like, say I'm talking to my grandmother about something and hear like, sana, sana, colita rana, and then just like, hoping to like steer whatever it is away, like staging stuff. I mean, as a fellow Boricua, I would love to know, like, how your heritage has shaped you over the years as well, too, especially being a New Yorker, because that's a whole different level of Puerto Rican as far as I know.
Yeah, it's there's like island Puerto Rican, and then there's Nuyorican. Yeah, I mean, going to what you were saying, the superstitious, like, grandma, I definitely had the grandma that was like rubbing eggs in front of my face. Like, if I had an audition or if I needed like a good grade in school, like SATs or something. But yeah, I mean, like, my Puerto Rican background, like, it was... My mom and dad are both Puerto Rican. I'm fully Puerto Rican, even though I very much don't look it. But my parents, I always grew up with Spanish in my household. It was a thing where like my parents would speak Spanish to me, and then in terms like my mom was still learning a little bit, so I would, you know, speak to her in English, going to school, which was very common growing up in a Hispanic household. But yeah, I mean, we would go to Puerto Rico all the time, and my mom was very determined that we didn't lose our heritage, especially growing up. My older brothers and I, we were listening to like hardcore music, and my mom's like, what the hell are you listening to? Why are you listening to this? Why isn't there like any Daddy Yankee or La India in your mix and anything? Yeah. So my mom's like, why aren't you listening to any of this? But, you know, occasionally when we're cleaning, Saturday mornings, they're playing. But my mom was very determined to like ingrain us into our culture. So when we were growing up doing like elementary school projects of like, tell us about your background, about your family and everything, my mom would like, this is all me. It was almost like her moment, like, this is who you are. But yeah, I mean, we grew up so loving of our heritage and loving of our background, and it also was so easy to do it in New York because you know, it was just so, it's a melting pot, you know? So it's like we got the best of everything. So even if I was hanging out with friends that weren't Puerto Rican, they were Dominican, they were Ecuadorian, they were like Cubano and stuff. So it's all somewhat the same, you know? So it's like a kind of lineage where even though like you're not Puerto Rican, but you're still Hispanic, so you're still supported in the Hispanic community. But yeah, I mean, that was really it. And then I lost my train of thought. Sorry.
It's coquito season. That's on the brain easily.
It is. Oh my gosh. I do need to put my order in with coquito.
I do too. Okay. That's the one good thing about once it gets cold outside and the sun goes away at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon, you know, coquito's around soon.
Oh gosh.
I can't wait. So I would love to know, like, growing up with a hardcore scene, I would love to know where you managed to sprinkle in a little bit of pro wrestling into this too. So were you starting to watch like around the Attitude Era? Or?
Yeah. Oh no, I was already watching during the Attitude Era. I have 2 older brothers, so
perfect.
Yeah, it was very easy to get into it. And then growing up in the New York scene, my dad grew up in New York. My mom grew up in Puerto Rico, but my dad grew up in New York. And since wrestling was always in Madison Square Garden, he would always hear about the shows. He would always watch it with his friends. And then eventually when we came along, his kids, he just passed it down to us. So it was always a tradition in our household to watch it.
Nice. I mean, I know for me, I don't know if I stumbled across it by chance, but like I feel like my grandpa, like he would watch it here and there, and like there would be like the old wrestling shows they would have over at like the War Memorial Auditorium for like years and years before like obviously like a lot of the televised product was starting to circle around here. But it's always interesting to hear where like the love of wrestling comes from for a bunch of us, especially your love for the Japanese side of it too. So when were you first introduced into Joshi?
I was first fully introduced to Joshi during the pandemic.
Really?
Yeah. Like, I, knew about Joshi. I obviously knew about Aja Kong and Bull Nakano, but I learned about Manami Toyota and Akira Hokuto like around May 2020, because that's I remember that was the first time I watched their match together, one of their matches, I think in 1995. And it was then where it was like a Zoom party pretty much, where all of us were watching it and our minds were blown and we're like, wait, we need to watch more. So we just went on to a wormhole one night on YouTube of just Joshi matches. And then that's when I told, of course, my best friend Kayla about these matches. And she was just starting up her YouTube channel. And it was like, let's start Church of Joshi. And then there's that. But really, we started 2020. And before that, I knew about Kana, Asuka. I knew about Mayu Iwatani, especially because of her appearances in... Sorry, my phone rang.
Oh, no, you're fine.
because of her appearances at Ring of Honor. So I knew about Joshi a little bit, but that's when it really came into this blossoming thing that is Church of Joshi.
Yeah, and I know we are going to dive a little bit deeper into that too. I'd love to know, even before the pandemic, like, were you really interested in starting to cover it, or just wrestling in general on your own before the world kind of shut down?
Yes.
To put it mildly. Not like we had, a YouTube channel that's, almost 4.5, 5 years old too. So definitely got into something before COVID.
Well, this is the thing, is that COVID, I know, is very rough for other people, very hard on other people, but because of the pandemic, it gave me enough time to really dive into content creating, because before the world shut down, I was bartending and I was also content creating. And when I first started, I was putting out videos like once a week, and that is exhausting.
Oh yeah.
That is exhausting when you're like bartending, and in New York, you're working till 4 a.m. because that's when bars close. Mm-hmm. So having to, work till 4 a.m, wake up early enough to maybe think about an idea starting the beginning of the week, it was tough. But the pandemic allowed me to have more time, and it allowed me to be more silly too, because was such a silly situation the whole world was put in, because,
well, yeah.
That millions of other, stuff that people can say about the pandemic, but, it did give me the time to do it, but I wasn't expecting to get this far.
I don't think anyone that looks back at the year 2022 compared to years prior ever expects where they are now to be a thing. So it's definitely surreal with that. But even going back to your early days of your YouTube channel too, I mean, you've done so much. You've done prediction content, you've done reactionary content, you've done little fun lifestyle stuff, wrestling makeup tutorial was something you've done, little
a drunk
opinion pieces.
Wrestling makeup tutorial.
I mean, is there really any other kind of makeup tutorial that a wrestling fan might be interested in?
That's true. That's true.
I mean, we're camp. What can we say? So.
True.
Yeah. And then, I mean, we've gotten to see so much of your coverage over the years of different promotions, obviously WWE, Ring of Honor, GCW, and even getting to do some travel for wrestling as well too. So were you always kind of a road warrior when it came to seeing different shows?
Kind of, a little bit. I didn't really think that there was a lot of independent wrestling near me growing up, especially in high school. In high school, it was mainly WWE. Mm-hmm. And then it wasn't until around the time of when I was in college was when I was starting to discover New Japan and Ring of Honor, because growing up it was always WWE. Either WWE or WCW was playing in my household. And then, later down the road when I got older, I was like, okay, Japanese tapes, what are these? And so my brother had the VHSs, and so I grew up watching it, but I didn't know what it was. I was just like, okay, he just has this VHS tape. I didn't think it was much of it, but it was New Japan tapes. And so then, when I was in college, that's when I was really exploring more in the world of wrestling. And I didn't go to a lot of live shows. I probably went to a few Ring of Honor shows, especially when they were in Terminal 5. I think I've gone to maybe one CZW show and a GCW show, but it was mainly what was accessible to me and what I can find and what I could afford.
But very much that last part.
Especially when it's out in Jersey. I'm in New York and I don't drive. I'm not going to Jersey, especially dealing with the public transit. But it was later down the road when I first discovered New Japan. And I remember staying up late to watch all the Wrestle Kingdoms. And then around, I think it was 2017, when my friends and I were like, hey, let's go to WrestleMania this year. And that was fun because we went to WrestleMania, but we also the night before went to our first not our first Ring of Honor show. It was somebody else's first Ring of Honor show. Was it? It was my ex-boyfriend's. Sorry, I forgot my ex-boyfriend was at the vacation. Anywho.
Now the question is, were you trying to forget him or the, anyway.
Yeah, anyway.
Was that your first Supercard of Honor?
Yes, that was my first Supercard of Honor. Yes, that was my first Supercard of Honor. I've been to final battles. I've been to Manhattan Mayhem, I think was another pay-per-view. But that was my first Supercard. And that was mind-blowing to see these people that I was watching that were wrestling in Japan, that were wrestling like all over the world. Which is the same with WWE, but when you saw them in Ring of Honor, it just felt a little bit more intimate because of those chances of like actually meeting them before the show. Because I remember at that Supercard, there was a huge line for the Young Bucks. Such a huge line for the Young Bucks, and there was like nobody in line for Cody Rhodes. So I went and grabbed a picture with Cody Rhodes, of course, and then like we grabbed a picture with everybody else. But it was just mind-blowing to experience like Ring of Honor, and then the next night was WrestleMania 33, and then the Hardys came out and they had just had that match, like the ladder match with the Young Bucks the night before Ring of Honor. So like that was the moment where as an adult, wrestling blew my mind, Yeah. Like when I was younger, wrestling blew my mind when Kane first came out, Kane's debut, like that blew my mind. And in that moment when I was younger, wrestling was real to me. And it got lost a little bit when I got older, but when I got older, I was like, holy shit, like when that happened in that moment, in that stadium too. I think that's also a different just atmosphere of experiencing that moment of being live in person in the stadium and feeling the building shake. I've never experienced that. And that's an experience that you can't duplicate outside of wrestling.
Oh my gosh, totally. And this last year was my first WrestleMania, so getting to be there night one when Cody comes back after like everything with AEW and just like the pop that he got, like the second the lights went out, everyone, I mean, it was the world's worst kept secret, but like that feeling in that stadium was unlike anything I've ever experienced as a fan.
Truly. And like the wires was like shaking that was holding up like the Titantrons.
Like there was literally a chill in the stadium too.
Oh yeah, there was. I was like, who opened the roof? Nobody. It's just Cody Rhodes coming out.
And of course it's after Becky and Bianca like have damn near match of the night, if not match of the weekend. Like, so there's just so much stuff at that show. It's just like, now I understand why people do this. Why they will go every year just because like, regardless of like what happens at the show, it's just the palpable energy of being at WrestleMania is just something crazy, unlike anything.
Truly, it was so wild, and to think like that all happened this year too.
Yeah, 2022 for the pro wrestling industry has been like perhaps one of the craziest years, probably since 2002.
Oh gosh, yeah, it is. Yeah. There's been, and it's like all across the board, not just with one promotion, right? Like it's just everywhere and anywhere. It's been a wild year for wrestling. I can't believe some of the stuff that happened this year.
I'm trying to think of what happened this year. So let's see. We start in January. Mickie James, who is the Knockouts champion at the time, competes in a Texas Death Match. 3 weeks before she's in the Royal Rumble, comes out with the title in Hardcore Country. We have everything going on with Cody leaving AEW and then goes back to WWE. We have Ring of Honor getting bought by Tony Khan.
We have
Impact does 20. There is so much crazy stuff this past. Wow.
So wild.
Yeah, this is definitely going to be a year to look back on.
Oh, yeah, for sure. This year, like, the amount of think piece YouTube wrestling media videos that are going to happen from this year, especially maybe next month in December, it's going to be so good.
Definitely. So even going back a little bit more of, like, traveling stuff, you did also get to go to the UK.
I did. Yes. I did go to the UK. So I went, I'll be a little vulnerable here. I went to the UK to escape from my ex-boyfriend because we were unfortunately still living together when we were broken up. Yeah. So I went to the UK and I was like, I have the money to go. I'm going to get away for a little bit. So I went to the UK, and I had a friend over there who lived in England, but I stayed in Birmingham because something about Birmingham just called to my attention. I think there was a wrestling show there as well, and then there was a progress show in Sheffield, I think it was called. So I got there, and it was just such a beautiful experience. I had been to London before, but to be there by myself, and again, like going through like a heartbreaking moment in my life, you know, it was just nice to escape. It felt like Eat, Pray, Love. Is that the name of the movie? Eat, Pray, Love?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, that is the name of the movie.
Yeah, it felt like that, but mixed in with wrestling, and I went to 2 wrestling events, and then I guess I tweeted it out, and the people at Progress were like, hey, where are you sitting? And they were like, okay, cool. Expect something after the intermission. And so after intermission, they gave me a shout out. They're like, is Alex here from New York? And I was like, this is so crazy. This is wild.
Hey, that's cool.
But it was cool it was really cool. But it was really cool to be at a wrestling show in a totally different atmosphere than what I'm used to, because there were so many different chants that were happening. Some of them I didn't understand what they were saying, and there were some other chants that were so niche into the culture, I just didn't understand. Like taking off your shoe and then doing a shoey and drinking a beer or a shot from your shoe. I didn't understand any of that, but it was very entertaining.
Yeah, and I think you probably wanted a great time too, because it was really before like NXT UK, so like you really got to see like Brit Rest like in its prime, I want to say.
Yeah, this was way before, I think. So, or maybe it was a year before. So yeah, I got to see Pete Dunne when he was Pete Dunne, Butch, as you would call it.
Yeah. And his Why I Oughta Ask. Thank you, Taryn.
Yeah. I also got to see like Gunter, Walter. I'm so used to calling them, you know, their regular names. Yeah. I got to see Walter there. Like, that was so wild. Yeah, there were so many different talent there that was went on to do like NXT UK. So yeah, it was wild. But it's funny because it's the exact same thing as here in the States when you see indie wrestlers in GCW or Shine or Shimmer or anything like that, where it's like you're so used to, you know, seeing them in an intimate setting, and then now they go on to wrestle on national TV. Because I remember I would watch Shotzi Blackheart in Queens at Evolve and Shimmer. They would have those double shows, and she would wrestle 2 times a day. And I remember seeing her in like intimate settings like that. And then now she's on SmackDown.
Yeah, killing it on SmackDown too. Got her tank back and everything. I'm so happy.
Oh my gosh,
she got the tank back.
I'm happy the tank is back.
Yeah,
I'm
very
like she's
happy
complete
the
again
tank
with
is the
back.
tank back.
Yeah. All is right in the world.
Yes, definitely. So obviously we did mention how the pandemic really did give you the chance to really have more time for content, really build up your portfolio and get to do so many different things. You've gotten to work with so many different outlets over the last couple years. Among them, Fightful, you've done Wrestling with Regret, Bells to Bells, Wrestle Talk, even WWE The Bump. So how did The Bump come to be? I'm very curious.
It came to be through a Twitter DM. I got a Twitter DM. Yeah, I got a Twitter DM from one of the producers, and it said, you know, they were looking for a new role on The Bump, and they were interested in me, and to shoot them an email or shoot them a DM back. And of course, I messaged friends that work there that was like, hey, is this a real person? Because, you know, a Twitter DM could be anybody. Yeah. But they confirmed that they were real and reached back out, and they invited me on to do the Royal Rumble watch along with them. It was wild. Like, it was so wild because that was never a part of my goals. When I started this out, like, I didn't have goals, to be honest. I was just doing this YouTube channel was more of an outlet of like a creative outlet because I wasn't acting at the time. I didn't have any much roles, and I was working a lot. So that's why I created the YouTube space for myself. And along with that, like, you know, pandemic, I had more opportunity or more time to create. And again, like, it just wasn't on my list. It was just like, I'm just going to create and see where it goes. I'm doing pretty well in like the, you know, wrestling internet space. So that's good. So the fact that WWE were like, hey, we actually know who you are. Come hang out, come through. And I was like, this is crazy. It's so wild because, yeah, it's so wild. So when I first did the bump, the first episode I appeared on was the show before the Royal Rumble, was on Wednesday, and they recorded on Tuesdays. So they set me up. I was doing it from my desk, and they're like, okay, yeah, you know, we'll count you in, and this is what you're going to do on the show, and just wait here in this lobby, and you'll see some people who are the hosts. You'll see some of the hosts. You'll see a guest, but, you know, they're not going to see you until we, like, count you in. Also, by the way, you're going to do the segment with Charlotte Flair, so have fun. And I was like, what? And I had, like, 2 minutes to just prepare myself, and I'm like sitting down with a screen like this, and Charlotte Flair's like on her phone, everybody else is on their phones, and like I could see them, but they can't see me.
And I'm sure you're just like, no sell.
Yeah, I was like, I was like, whoa! I was like a deer in headlights. I was like low key taking a picture, sending it to my group chat. I didn't post it anywhere, but like, look who the fuck, look who I'm on screen with. But yeah, it was so wild. And then I did it, and I was a part of the watch along, and there were so many different people there, like RJ City and Sam Roberts and Tegan Knox, and it's just all these people that I love on the internet that I love watching.
I still can't believe RJ said he got to do that for so long, because seeing him, he's from like my area, so like Toronto's like an hour from Buffalo. Seeing him at independent shows, my first independent show actually was for Empire State Wrestling. I remember him in like a very like holiday like street fight with Greg Iron, and like Ricky Shane Page was a special guest referee. It was like the craziest thing. And then him and Greg Iron later on would have a tag team. They break up and they have a death match, where the death was from being lactose intolerant and having cheese grated into someone's mouth. And then they come back from the dead the next segment and win the tag titles back. Coming Out to Heaven is a Place on Earth. You cannot make this up.
But again, going back to like people you watched live, right? People you,
it's crazy,
like, you know, you admired for so long, and you see them go up. And he had an amazing show on the bump. But yeah, like doing that show, it connected me to him. So like now, you know, I check out his, you know, I sit during his coffee Sundays, his talk show. Jesus Christ. Let me do that again.
The longest running undergarment coffee making show in internet history, I'm sure.
Yes.
We will go with that.
Having coffee with RJ. Yeah, having coffee with RJ. I hang out in his chat. He comes by for Church of Joshi all the time, but that wouldn't have happened if, you know, I didn't connect with him on the bump, and even Sam Roberts as well. So it was just wild to be a part of that experience. And sometimes I look back on that and I'm like, that's not photoshopped, and that's wild. And then a few months later, it was when I did the Ultimate WrestleMania, which that in itself was crazy, to actually go to the location where they filmed that and seeing history. Like, they had the MSG thing, that microphone sign that they had like all of these ring aprons and different ring coats. Like, that was crazy. That was the moment where I had to, like, they were setting up, I remember they were setting it up for Ultimate WrestleMania, and I had just finished talking to like Ryan Perpola and Matt Camp and Sam Roberts, and we were talking about some pay-per-view that had just happened, and I just was just having such a fun time, and like it was just hitting me all at once, and I had to run to the bathroom, and I was like looking at myself in the mirror and splashing water in my face, and I was like, chill, this is a moment, take it in, because that was like, I need to take in this moment because I don't know if this is going to happen again. And so I was taking in that moment and just breathing and just being like, have fun, you deserve to be here. And sometimes I need to have those moments because the amount of things that I've done, I have to remind myself, like, take in the moment. You know, it's weird to say, like, this may not happen again, but that's what makes me like just take it one step at a time. And then they invited me back, and it's still crazy, and I got to do the ultimate backlash. So it's a wild
that's
experience.
a good way to think of a lot of things. Just like nothing is definite for the next time that you'll do anything. So it's always good to really try to soak up everything as it happens, as it is the only time it's going to happen. So definitely a good way to stay grounded. And then I know we've kind of danced around it earlier as well, but obviously Church of Joshi really over the last couple of years has really been a passion project and really seeing so much turnout for it too. So was it just like from that Zoom call where you and KB decided, hey, I think we need to do something here?
It was her idea.
Wow.
So because she was starting up her Twitch channel, and she brought up the idea of doing something with me on her Twitch channel, and I was very open to it. And then we watched the Joshi match together, and she was like, okay, let's I want to watch more Joshi, because I think at that time, like, it was all Thunderdome wrestling, and you know, there was like a lack of appeal, and it's not so much of the performers or the production or anything, because everyone did a tremendous job with the situation that we're given, but as a viewer, it was just like something's not hitting for me personally, and for her as well. And so when we got into Joshi, we were both like, this is the only wrestling I want to watch. And so she was like, let's do something where it's like church, Joshi, church is on Sunday, you go to Sunday Mass. What if they came to Sunday Mass learning about Joshi? People learn in church sometimes. And and so sometimes. We didn't know that much. I know. And we didn't know that much about Joshi. So it's just like, we don't want to, you know, we never presented it as like, we're the experts to go to for Joshi, but you know, if you want to learn more about Joshi, come learn with us, you know, because it's so important, especially as a content creator, where it's just like, you know, you don't know everything, you're right. And that's fine. I think with some people, when they see content creators, it's like, well, you don't know who this person is, you don't know who that person is. It's like, no, but that doesn't make me any less of a fan. And that's more so outside of content creators as well, where it's just like, everyone's learning, right? Right now, there's such a boom with WWE and women's wrestling and AEW as well, where there's so much more mainstream eyes on our product. So it's okay if some people don't know who other people are, but be a good person and just teach the other people. And that's just definitely a message that we try to push out with Joshi. And that was it. That's how it started. And then we did our first show the last week of June. And we've done it ever since for like around 2 years now, which is so wild. But it's also just fun to sit down and watch wrestling with my best friend, because we became friends because of wrestling. We met WrestleMania 34 that weekend in New Orleans. That was the first time that we met, and we've been friends ever since. So for 5-6 years now. And we wanted to get into Joshi together, and we were so passionate about it at first, because it was just so... You know, being a, I guess, connoisseur of women's wrestling, that was just a different style that you didn't see. So it was so interesting and fascinating to get hooked onto it really quick.
And I think the good thing is that you really went into it and making it approachable, because the whole thing is that we're all learning together and we can learn to appreciate things together too. So I feel like that's why it's been such a joy to get to see that translate on those live streams, getting to see how diverse wrestling really is. I mean, even the other day, you see a clip of Manami Toyota doing a crazy, like, springboard move onto, like, Aja Kong, and people are just like, who could do that now? Like, 25 years later, like, name someone who could actually do that pulled off the same way, and it's just like, you can't. So getting to see a lot of those one-of-a-kind talents from even back then really get to stand out. And it also may have led you to getting published in a little thing we call Pro Wrestling Illustrated as well. So,
yeah, that happened.
Getting to dip your toes in the PWI Women's 150 the last couple years. I mean, how did the opportunity to be a columnist come about last year? I would love to know.
Again, a Twitter DM. It was either a Twitter DM or maybe it was an actual email, but yeah, PWI was pretty wild. They had published us last year for a column of this is who you should check out in the world of wrestling, I think what it was. And that moment was surreal, to walk into a Barnes & Noble and find the PWI magazine and see the logo that me and my best friend, like, I remember when Kayla and we sat down and we made that logo. We made it together, and it's just so wild to do that. And then this year, for them to ask us to be a part of the women's PWI 150, that was a mind-blowing moment. That was magical, because for me, I grew up with wrestling. I grew up with older brothers. Like I said, my brother would get the VHS tapes, and he would also get the wrestling magazines, and PWI was definitely in our house. And that's just wild. And I mean, like, WWE is cool, and that's like another goal, but like to be published in something, but also be a part of their YouTube channel as well, with another entity in wrestling that I grew up with, is mind-blowing. Just absolutely mind-blowing. And again, it's those moments where it's just like, okay, just take this all in, you know, because especially walking into that Barnes & Noble. I made a vlog about it on my YouTube channel, but that was just wild, because like, I used to go to Barnes & Noble all the time when I was a teenager, you know? I would go to the one in Bay Plaza in New York, in the Bronx, which is not there anymore, which is very sad. But I used to go to that one all of the time, and my friends would read the manga, I would read the comic books, or there were a series of Unfortunate Events. I loved that series, and so I would pick it up all the time and go to Barnes & Noble. So it was so mind-blowing. Like, years later, I'm 29 years old, and I'm walking into a Barnes & Noble, and I pick up that issue. It was so crazy.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you gotta remember, oh, wow, this is real life. So really getting to sink in and think about, wow, I actually got to do that.
Yeah.
That is phenomenal.
Oh, God, it was so wild.
Yeah, and
still
obviously...
unbelievable.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was saying it was just still unbelievable.
Good. And then, obviously, you're no stranger to other forms of content, too. We've been seeing you a lot more on Twitch as well as TikTok. I think, for me, like, TikTok always, like, clicked a lot in my head. I'm like, I've seen Alex's face before, even, like, if it wasn't, like, for wrestling stuff, and I had to think of what it was. And it was the women's wrestling fans doing the Don't Rush challenge that kind of went viral on Twitter.
Oh, yeah,
so
yeah.
I want to know how that came about. So was that your idea, or, like, who came up with that little challenge to do?
Yeah, it was my idea. I think, yeah. I think it was my idea. I'm pretty sure it was my idea. If I'm maybe missing someone, I don't think so. But yeah, I think it was my idea. I think like a few people tweeted, like, maybe it wasn't so much my idea, because I was the one that gathered everyone together and was like, hey, who wants to do, like, I tweeted out like, hey, who wants to do this? Send me your version. I'll edit it. I'll put it together and I can post it. But I think it was a various amount of women on wrestling Twitter, because the WWE one came out with with Sasha Banks and Tamina, and so that came out, and then the men did one, and then I was like, well, somebody, I think it was just a few people that were like, hey, wouldn't this be cool if it was women in the IWC? And I was like, okay, let me take a crack at it, you know? And there were so many people, and I can only fit so many people in like 2 minutes. But I think it started a trend, because then the guys started to do it, and there were just so many more other people that were doing it, like teenagers, kids were doing it too. So that was really cool. But it was more so, you know, it was a trend, and it was the beginning of the pandemic, and everyone was bored at home. So everyone was going to do it, which is great. But it was very empowering to see how many women were dedicated to doing this, of like Lovely had like all of her belts, pulling out all her belts, like Sarah Bain cosplayed as Shawn Michaels, Issa did the whole like Shinsuke Nakamura bit. Like every single girl did their makeup to the nines to match the shirt that they were wearing. Like, it was so cool to see so many women come together. It was almost like, for me, a mini like evolution in a sense, because it was like, because in that time it was, you know, we were all stuck at home, we were all stuck on Twitter, so we had each other to rely on in a way, right? Like the timeline, and especially wrestling Twitter, like we almost kind of like everyone just kind of bounced off each other on like bits and you know, tweets and all that other stuff, and content as well. And so it was nice to see how many women were so passionate about doing this, and just so passionate of being like, yeah, I'm a wrestling fan, I'm gonna do this. And they had the coolest gear. There was so much merch where I was like, when did they make that? Did the Hardy Boys make that merch? That's so crazy. When did they make that belt? That belt is, I didn't think that belt was available or anything like that. But yeah, it was very empowering to put that together. And doing that, and then connecting still with those women to this day, like 2 years later, is really cool. Because wrestling, you know, with Kayla and I meeting in real life, it brought us together, but wrestling online during such a hard time, bringing us together in that way was really cool. And again, like, it almost felt like the magic that was behind Evolution, where seeing so many women that you grew up watching are wrestling in this show that is dedicated to them, doing this video that was like, hey, we're here, we're not going anywhere kind of thing. You know, there's room for women in the table as well when it comes to wrestling.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that time during the pandemic, too, there was a lot of presence with women, especially in the IWC. Everywhere you would see, like, Find Women Watch Wrestling trending. We'd have the different spaces pop up. Probably the biggest space, I would say, in, like, IWC history is the trial of Faye Jackson. So, like, proving that women can draw, like, even especially on Twitter, becoming, like, the #1 trend. Like, just, like, women have staying power in this business on all sides of it, even the spectators and the supporters. So, making sure you guys got to get your tens from that as well, especially.
Yeah. Oh, my gosh. I forgot about the trial with Faye.
I got my Better Call Saul shirt in the pile over there.
Oh, my God.
Oh, what a night. Probably a top 5 night on the Bird app, I would say, easily.
Oh, for sure. That, and then wrestling Twitter after dark.
For better or for worse, wrestling Twitter after dark.
It was for better for me. I made money that night.
Get it? So, other ways that you can have some key financial backers are subscriptions and bits on your Twitch channel. So I know you do a lot of... How's that for a segue, right?
That was a perfect segue.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, we've seen you do, like, Total Divas watch-alongs. You've done different reactions and watch-alongs to other shows, even some gaming content. So was your Twitch kind of started around the same time that you were doing Church of Joshi with KB?
No, my Twitch started a few months after. So we started Church of Joshi around June, July, and I started my Twitch channel around November. And it was because of Kayla and Church of Joshi, and I saw how cool the community was there. And not only with Church of Joshi, but when she was doing her solo streams, and when she was streaming Lucha Underground and Resident Evil. Like, it was cool. It was a cool interaction. I think what I liked most about Twitch as opposed to YouTube, I feel like it's easier to connect with different creators on Twitch as opposed to YouTube, because on Twitch there's that element of rating someone, right, where you take your community and you guide them to another community, you guide them to another stream, and when you do that, depending on the streamer, they're very they're very nice, you know, and they're very welcoming to this new community that's coming. And especially when they're more familiar with you, they're like, oh my god, I know Alex, she's great, blah blah. So I think that's what I liked the most about it. And with YouTube, I felt like it was a little harder to connect with different media people. And I felt like with different media people on YouTube, I had to connect with them in person before the pandemic. And so that's why I have really bad social anxiety. So I was like, I'd rather stay in bed and cry than have to interact with somebody in person sometimes. But during the pandemic, it was easier to connect with a lot of people on YouTube because that's how I worked with Fightful and Wrestle Talk. But on Twitch, it was just another like element. Like, it just didn't feel like it was pressured to be like a certain entity of a creator, if that makes sense, you know?
Especially
like
nowadays,
it was different.
Too.
Yeah. Totally.
And I love the fact that it's a range of content too, because I know back in the day they were very gaming centric, but being able to host those shows, being able to do a lot of just chatting, watching along. I know you are gaming yourself. I've gotten to be in those Fall Guys lobbies that get a little heated, so definitely fun there. But I also know that you kind of talked about your love for like games like Destiny and Call of Duty. So how did you get into like FPS games and like more of like the online multiplayer side of things?
So Call of Duty was just a thing that I like played growing up, right? Because when I had an Xbox 360, what was it, Modern Warfare? I played that all the time and like Gears of War. But again, older brothers, I was always into video games. Like my brother, when he got an N64, I got his hand-me-down of a Super Nintendo. And if he got a PlayStation, then I got the N64. And I got all of his games, so I was really just playing his games. And again, with the Xbox. So when I got a little older, I was still kind of into those games, like after college. And I got a PlayStation 4, and I discovered Destiny, and I was like, whoa, I really love Destiny. And especially with Destiny, Peter Dinklage was the voice of the Ghost, which a ghost is a character that helps your character out. And so I love that because at that time, Game of Thrones was a thing. So I was like, oh my gosh, I love this video game. And then they replaced his voice, which I'm still mad about to this day. But that was a fun video game because, again, community. I knew people that played that game, and with that game, like if you did raids, if you did like nightfalls, you had to play with different people, so it was strategizing and working with different people together. So I loved that game. I didn't like any other shooter game but Destiny. But then Destiny 2 came out, and I don't like Destiny 2. I felt like it just nerfed the whole storyline, but that's I can get into a whole tangent about that. But yeah, and that was another thing, like Twitch, it's so easy to connect with somebody through wrestling. At least for me it is. Like, whether it's a diehard fan or someone that like, oh yeah, I grew up with the Attitude Era, you know, like it was just so easy for me. It comes like second nature for me to connect with somebody through wrestling. But in video games, like, that was exciting to play that on Twitch because I was just like, hey, I'm going to play this game, Destiny. Does anybody know this game? And there were so many people in my community, in my Discord, that love Destiny. And I was like, okay, cool. This is awesome. All right, cool. And, like, just so many other different games like Stardew Valley. Stardew Valley is definitely one that I play religiously.
Do you prefer it over Animal Crossing?
Yes. Okay. I do prefer it over Animal Crossing because with Animal Crossing, it might as well be like an indie game or a mobile game, to be honest, because Animal Crossing is more so aesthetics, whereas Stardew Valley actually gives you some objectives. It gives you some tasks. Are you sipping on the tea?
Yeah. I mean, I'm just Nintendo balls in your court. Hope you can dribble. Yeah.
No, but for real, like, and they came out with that, and they came out with the DLC, like the one DLC that they had for Animal Crossing, which you can have plenty, but the one DLC that they had, which was Happy Home Paradise, I was like, okay, cool, this is gonna bring me back to Animal Crossing, and it did, but just for the DLC. And then when it came to my own island, like, I was like, there's nothing for me to do here other than just terraforming. I hate the way that you terraform in Animal Crossing. And then there's the difference between terraforming in your regular island and then terraforming and designing on your Happy Home Paradise. Again, another subject I can go forever about. But I think Animal Crossing's cute. I think it was really cute in the moment of us in the beginning of the pandemic.
Yeah, I was going to say, I do have a controversial yet brave statement about it. I feel like this most recent Animal Crossing would not have done nearly as well if we weren't all trapped in the house and the Switch was the only console we could get our hands on.
Yeah, I agree.
Just saying.
I agree.
Well,
and especially when it was different variations of the console, like the
Yeah.
Switch Lite and then the Switch. Yeah, and that's funny enough too, because before everything, like a week before everything, you know, I got a Nintendo Switch Lite, and I got I like pre-ordered Animal Crossing, because in my head, 3 weeks later, we were supposed to go to Tampa for WrestleMania, and I had trips lined up that year where I was like, okay, I'm going to be traveling a lot. Let me buy a Nintendo Switch. We didn't travel. WrestleMania was not a thing.
Yeah, I traveled to my couch. I traveled to my bathroom, my kitchen.
Yeah. I traveled to my door to pick up my Uber Eats, you know?
Yes. I mean, the one upside of everything with the pandemic was finally getting contactless delivery on Uber Eats. Let's be real. Not having to actually see your driver, like, leave it at the door. I'm like, thank you. Thank you.
Again, social interaction, or social anxiety and social interaction. No, thank you. Leave my Chipotle at the door, please.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, like, even coming out of the pandemic, like, just being social is definitely a little bit of a complex thing, but not as complex as Unsanctioned that you did with Sir Wilkins over on Spotify. So that is, again,
you are having
these segues.
Fire segues. Oh,
I'm in rare form
God.
today. I mean, I don't know if it's daylight savings. I don't know if it's the caffeine. I don't know, but yeah, I mean, getting to do Complex Unsanctioned, how did that opportunity come about?
That was an email.
Was it a Twitter DM? Okay. We're just going to have a bingo board just like, okay. So we have 2 for the email, 2 for the DMs, for those keeping score at home. I don't know what the free space is, but I'll let you know what you win on Twitter at Recreation. Yeah.
Yeah, that was actually a professional. Not that the other ones weren't professional, but that was an email.
But yeah.
Yeah, they
from an entity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Complex was again another wild opportunity that was absolutely not on my list. They emailed me, they told me about the deal with Spotify Live, and signed a contract. And I already knew Sir Wilkins because of Jobber Tears podcast. He's from New York. So I definitely knew who he was, and we've met in person a handful of times when he did his watch-alongs in Legends. So I definitely met him beforehand, and so it was exciting to work with him, and it was exciting to work with someone different as well, because I'd never worked with him before. So, and a massive platform like this, it was surreal. But for me, it was exciting to bring wrestling into this stratosphere of pop culture that was Complex, you know, because for me, being a theater kid, I always saw wrestling as theater. It's a great sport. Everyone's athletic as hell, but for me, it was always the storytelling, the pageantry, how someone is reacting to a statement or an action in the ring, because again, that's wrestling, right? When you're going out of that curtain, when you're going out of Gorilla, it's almost the same of when you're going into a scene. What was your character doing before the scene, entering into this element, you know? So if your character knows that they have to confront their partner about their cheating, like, how is their mindset going into it? Where, like, for a wrestler, and it sounds more complicated to some people, but this is honestly the complex thing, the complex thing that breeds into the element of what makes a good wrestler a storyteller sometimes, right? Like Eddie Guerrero, that one Monday Night Raw where he comes out and he's sick with the blanket and he's like walking out, like that's acting, whether you like it or not, and he was believable in it. So that's how I always viewed wrestling. And for me, it was doing Complex was an exciting opportunity to almost shine a light in that for Complex and for wrestling as well. And we did our first couple episodes. Faye Jackson was our first guest, so that was fun, and it was so comfortable to do an episode with her because, again, I knew her, so it was so cool. But then we got bigger guests, and I was not expecting. I really, truly was not expecting
from both sides. No, less.
I was not expecting us to have guests like that. Like, we instantly got Bianca Belair after WrestleMania. We got Liv Morgan before WrestleMania. We got Nyla Rose, Thunder Rosa, Big Swole. We got
Jade Cargill.
Jade Cargill. Athena. The Street Profits. Like, again, these massive performers that I watch every single week are now sitting down with me either on a Monday or a Wednesday with me and Sir Wilkins, and just like shooting the shit with us, you know? And that was fun because Wilkins is a personal trainer, so he's got all the like the workout and the athletics down pack, where me, I was just like, hey, what's like your favorite video game growing up? And like with Jade, that was so easy talking to her about video games, and she was like, yeah, I love 007. And it was like, you like 007 on N64? Like, what the heck?
Yeah,
it was so wild. And to talk to Liv Morgan about crystals and like her astrology stuff, like, again, that's an element of somebody I didn't know much about, you know? And for me, going into Complex, did a lot of research and worked with the producers and Sir Wilkins, and it was a lot of fun to create something. It felt special. It felt special to me, and I think it felt special to a lot of us, especially when we were with thank you. But especially when we were with Bianca Belair at Met Stadium at Citi Field. That was again, like, growing up in New York, going to Shea Stadium, you know, going to Yankee Stadium. My dad's a huge baseball fan, so when I told him, like, hey, guess what I'm doing today, he was freaking out, even though he doesn't like the Mets, but he was still happy for me. But even that,
I feel that very much.
I was like, I understand. But even in that only being a part of that moment of her throwing out the first pitch, but to be a part of the moment of people that just work there seeing her, the way that people, like, Bianca Belair's stardom is through the roof. Like,
oh my god, yeah.
No, like, serious. Like, people are like, yeah, she's a star.
I would say, like, top 2 in the company for a reason.
Yes, top 2 in the company, but also, like, top of even the PWI charts for a reason. Like, seriously, watching her walk through, like, she almost looks like, in real life, she looks like a Disney princess, straight up. Like, she is so gorgeous. But to see people literally cry being in her presence, and she's so lovely. There was this one woman who legit, like, was crying. She was like, I love you so much, blah blah blah. And she, like, took a moment, she grabbed her hand, she was like, what's your name, you know? And she was like, I'm so happy that we're here, I'm so happy we're in this moment. I was like, if Bianca Belair said that to me as I was working and I was crying about meeting her, I dropped dead. Like, that's so touching. And those little moments of seeing that in person, you know, WWE always records that, and it's always a part of, like, their montage and everything. But to see that and experience her stardom everywhere she walked was tremendous. And she had the belt too, but I honestly think if she didn't have the belt, she would still grab that attention because of who she is and, like, what she represents as well. And it's just, there's so much magic in the air when she enters the room. But again, I would have never experienced that if it wasn't for having the show on Complex. So yeah, Complex was a really cool experience to be a part of.
I don't know about you guys, but near me, the weather outside is definitely getting frightful, but the coffee inside my cup right now is most certainly delightful. And that's thanks to Grinding Coffee Company. Grinding Coffee is Black LGBTQIA plus owned and based out of Georgia, shipping nationwide in the United States, and they house a variety of blends and flavors like Bourbon Delight, The Gay Agenda, and even your classic donut shop blend. And the best part is not only do they sell fantastic coffee, an assortment of grinds and beans, they also sell mugs and hats to keep you warm inside and out this winter. Head on down to grindingcoffee.co and you could use code Jose to get 10% off your order of coffee or accessories. Again, that is grindingcoffee.co, and using code Jose will get you 10% off your favorite coffee needs or accessories. Thank you so much to Grinding Coffee for partnering with me over the last few years and keeping me warm this holiday season. And now back to today's episode. No, I think that's probably why I think Complex Unsanctioned works so well. It's just the same way that you were doing for Church of Joshi. You really wanted to focus on making sure that everything was accessible for wrestling and like really getting to know the people behind these larger than life characters, these athletes, and really getting to see them and hear them for the people that they actually are. And it was so awesome really getting to hear things happen and all the different opportunities that came out of it. I feel like you and Wilkins really knocked it out of the park with that.
Yeah, I'm really proud of what we did. And again, to connect with Wilkins in that way, I think it helped that we both were passionate about what we were delivering on the show, but we were both so passionate about getting the show over in both lights, in both wrestling and on Complex. Because again, Complex is such a massive platform, and it's so massive with pop culture where, you know, obviously famously Hot Ones, they have had wrestlers on the show. So the company in itself already had a good rapport in the wrestling world, but to bring it a little bit more to life with us on Spotify Live was, again, like a dream, like for someone that grew up as a theater kid in pop culture. I was so engulfed in pop culture when I was younger. So to be a part of that again was really great. It's definitely like something that I will always look back on, and I will always be very proud of that.
Nice. And I know you've also gotten to dabble in some stuff even outside of wrestling. It wasn't too long ago that you actually got to do some red carpet coverage.
I did. Another wild moment in my life. Yeah, so I was asked to cover red carpet for Popverse. Popverse is under Reed Pop, and they were just starting out, and they needed a New York correspondent since most of their correspondents, I think, were in LA. Yeah. But they needed someone in New York, and my friend Ashley Victoria Robinson, who I have known since college, and we've always stayed connected, and she's more so in the comic book world. And she hit me up and she was like, hey, we need a correspondent. Would you be open to do this? I'll give my boss your email. And I was like, yeah, totally.
And that also answers the question of email or Twitter DM.
Email. Well, I guess technically it was like a text, but like the professional ask was through an email. Yes. I think it was like more so, are you cool with this, through a text? So
yeah. No, I got to put out the feeler before you get like the official pitch or something.
Yeah. So yeah, they asked me to do it, and the company or some of the correspondents were out of town. I think they were in C2E2 or Emerald City. I'm not too sure. It was one of the two. Yeah. And so they allowed me to like come up with the questions myself and you know, just do my own research, and it was for Secret Headquarters, and it was like Owen Wilson and Michael Pena in the movie, and they were like the biggest stars, and there were so many cool like child actors as well, kid actors as well in that movie. But yeah, just being a part of that again, going to a building that I have passed by in New York so many times, going in there and working it, and I brought my own equipment. I actually have a really funny story. So, I bought my own equipment to this premiere. So it was my mic, my camera, my tripod. And this camera that I have, it's a Canon Rebel T7i. And that's the camera that I originally used when I was first starting out with my YouTube channel with Queen of the Ring.
Yeah.
So I used that, and then I had my own Rode microphone, and I set it up. And I was setting up, and all these other people that have done red carpets before, like all of these like paparazzi people were there. E Entertainment was there. Entertainment Tonight was there. Everything, like there were so many like legit people that were there, and then me. And then like I was between like Entertainment Tonight and like Paramount Plus social media.
Yeah.
And so I'm setting up my tripod and my camera, and there's a part of my tripod that I was missing that screws into the camera slot on the bottom, and I was missing
the quick
that.
release, yeah.
Yes, the quick release. There we go.
Yeah.
Goes to show I did not know that name. I don't know camera equipment like that, but yes,
it took me years to figure it out too. Don't feel bad.
Okay, good. So it was the quick release, and I was missing that, and I didn't have a way to like keep the camera on the tripod. So I asked people if I can use their like tape, their graphing tape, and they were like, yeah, here, use this piece, even though they had a massive duct tape and they only gave me one piece. I was like, cool, thanks. I had rubber bands and I had a hair tie, and I MacGyvered my own thing, my tripod of just keeping it together, and it somehow worked. And I still got interviews from it, and it was just so wild. And again, it was a moment of like just thinking on my feet and just being like, I don't want to embarrass myself in front of all these people. This is a legit red carpet, whether this is a good movie or not. I don't know. I didn't see it, but well, I did see it afterwards, but it was secret headquarters. It was like this Disney, not Disney Plus, Paramount, this Paramount Plus show.
Yeah.
So it was like super official. And although I've worked, with WWE and Complex, I was not trained to work a red carpet. This was my very first experience, and I'm going into this with rubber bands and hair ties wrapped around my camera. And I got good interviews, and I was very proud of myself. And it was, again, one of those moments where taking in the moment, taking in this experience, not taking it for granted, but also slowing myself down of like, okay, you did this, and you did this literally by the skin of your teeth, because I had a day to research, a day to get the questions together, maybe like 2 days to get the questions together, and didn't have the right equipment, and I still made it work. And from that moment on, like, that was just 2-3 months ago, but in that moment I was like, okay, I can do anything. I can literally do anything. If I was interviewing people like Michael Pena, who's appeared in the MCU, someone like Owen Wilson, who is like this mega star in the world of Hollywood, if I was able to like interact with them and interview them, and they weren't looking at me like I was a doofus with rubber bands wrapped around my camera, I literally can do anything. Even on days where I'm depressed in my bed and I don't want to get up and I don't want to be here anymore, I still like think about that day, and that honestly like motivates me more. That's my own motivation, because I cannot believe that I was able to do that. And after that, I went to go see the movie, and after that, I like took myself out to a nice dinner, and I treated myself, because it was one of those rare moments in my life, but I feel like anyone else can relate, where it was just one of those rare moments where I was so proud of myself. Sorry.
No, you're fine.
It was one of those rare moments where I was so proud of myself, but I also didn't let the mistakes defeat me, because it got on social media. Like, it got to where it needed to be, and I sent in the footage, and they're like, this is perfect. And I'm like, if you only knew how that camera looked with the rubber bands, you would think. And like, even afterwards, I was packing up my gear, and one of the social media people for Paramount Plus came up to me. He was like, are you holding that camera with rubber bands? And I was like, yeah, I didn't have the piece. And he was like, that's honestly very impressive. And I was like, thanks. I didn't want to tell him it was my first red carpet, because they would be like, yeah, we could tell.
Which brings us back to wrestling. No sell it. No sell it. No.
Yeah, no sell it. No sell it. No sell it at all. But yeah, to be a part of that was So surreal. And all in one year too, like doing Complex and starting off the year with that and doing that and accomplishing that. And again, like I don't have an interview background. I don't have a journalist background. I am purely winging it and I am doing the best I can. But I'm also having a lot of fun doing this. This is absolutely not what I planned to do in my life at all. When I was very young, I thought that I would win an Oscar by now. But now I'm getting to do these things and travel the world and be in certain situations and environments that I wouldn't dream of being in like 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 8 years ago at that. So yeah, it's pretty surreal to be here today.
Yeah, no, it shows that, I mean, even just beyond the confines of the ring, you are a true queen with everything that you've been able to do. I mean, having so many different experiences, especially crossing over into mainstream pop culture and coming out so successful and, like, really getting to hone your craft that you weren't necessarily meant to do from the beginning, and really showing that, no, I have staying power, I'm able to do this, I'm able to hang with whoever it is that would be my constituents and really pull out. So it shows just the impressive nature of your work ethic and just how well you come across as a personality as well too. So you have every right to be proud of yourself.
Okay, you cannot make me cry.
No. That would be the second guest to say, like, okay, don't make me cry. You can probably figure out who the first one is because she cried with you in Dallas. So
Ella J.
Yeah. So let's see. We have 3 emails, 2 DMs, and 2 references to Ella crying for HBK. It's a great episode. What can I say?
Yeah.
So I know you did kind of just hint at the disbelief of everything you've gotten to do so far, but even going back to, like, say, young Alex, who was watching wrestling with her dad and with her brothers, like, if you could tell her, like, hey, when you grow up, you're actually going to be doing some crazy stuff with this business, what do you think her reaction would be?
Damn, that question's definitely gonna make me cry. What would her reaction be? Well, first she would say, like, what's a computer and what's Zoom? She'd be like, what's that? The internet?
90s babies.
Barely know her. Yeah. No, but I think the younger version of me would think that I was super cool. And I've definitely, when I was younger, I was so bright-eyed and so passionate. And I think the younger version of me would be very happy and proud of myself for taking my passion into other avenues besides acting and comedy as well. And yeah, I think that she would be very, very proud and very yeah, I don't know, this is gonna make me cry because you know how like yeah, but like, you know how healing your inner child, that's what I've been doing for the past few months. So like this question is very like, yeah, I've thought about this question before, and I do think that I would be very proud of myself if I was younger. I think definitely telling my younger self, like, hey, you'll be on WWE networking on the Peacock. Again, I think I would say, like, what's the Peacock? But she would be very proud for sure, especially the PWI thing. My God. Yeah. I don't think I would. Oh my gosh, yeah. It's going to make me cry.
No, you've definitely been killing it. I mean, 2022 has been one hell of a year for you, so I can only imagine. What do you hope to do in 2023?
Not get burnt out.
That is a real thing.
That is a real thing. That is a real thing. Again, I've never made goals. I'm going with the flow with life. Yeah. I think my goals really in 2023 is, again, not get burnt out, taking better care of my mental health, especially, but also just being, continue to be passionate and continue to just have fun, because that's honestly what I'm doing. Like, I started my YouTube channel out of fun. If you watch those old videos, I am not the same person I am today. And of course, you're not going to be the same person that you were 5 years ago, but I've learned so much, and I'm continuing to learn so much more from so many of my colleagues and my peers, and also just like learning what works for me, learning what works for me in terms of content creating. I'm probably not going to go back to uploading a video once a week. That is way too much for
Yeah,
me. But it's more so of like, again, what works for me and what works for my head and my heart, you know?
absolutely. And I know once you find whatever works for you, getting people to join you, that's the easiest part. Because, I mean, you have, like, this intangible, like, charisma that just draws people in, that regardless of what you're doing the platform, you are going to get that support. And I just see nothing but bright things ahead for you this coming year. So I somehow feel like you're going to make 2022 seem like it was nothing compared to what 2023 is going to hold. So I feel it. We're manifesting big
Your
things.
words, not mine.
Yep. Hey, well, I mean, thank you so much for spending some time with me. Like, this was such a great conversation. I feel like I know so much more about you, and I'm just so thrilled that we got to really let people get to know Alex for Alex too, and not just Queen of the Ring. So, where can people find you though?
Everyone can find me at Queen of the Ring. Queen of the Ring on Twitter with two G's, underscore Queen of the Ring on Instagram, regular, I think, Queen of the Ring on TikTok, regular Queen of the Ring on Twitch, twitch.tv/Queen of the Ring. But mostly follow Church of Joshi if you'd like to learn more about Joshi and you just want to see me have fun with my best friend. I love Church of Joshi. It's the best. But yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
that's
thank
where you
you
can
again.
find me.
Awesome. I mean, thank you again, Alex, so much for this. If you guys enjoyed this episode, make sure you're giving it a like. Comment down below what your favorite part of it was. See if you were keeping score of how many emails versus Twitter DMs we had. I would love to know who actually made it all the way through the episode. Shout out to you guys. Make sure you're giving it 5 stars on Apple and Spotify. Making sure you get to share this all over social media at Conway Creation on Twitter. And then all my socials, the Jose Can You See, twitch.tv/Jose Can You See. We do some Call of Duty. We do some Jackbox. We do some Fall Guys. Who knows what I'm going to be doing next, but all I know is that I will see you all next time. Take care, everybody.